Today we have good news for Pennsylvanians as we unveil the infrastructure agenda for Pennsylvania. We have a whole host of folks and organizations, bipartisan, cross-industry, multi-statewide associations supporting this effort, and we're pleased to get started on this ceremony. First speaking from way back in October timeframe, David Patti, Terry Fitzpatrick, and I thought we should get all the infrastructures together in Pennsylvania and work together to get Pennsylvanians working to repair our infrastructure. And with no further ado, David Patti, President and CEO, Pennsylvania Business Council. David.
Yeah, we're on. Thank you, Kelly. Good morning. I'm Dave Patti, the President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Business Council, and I'd like to take a few minutes to represent everyone in the business community and our interest this morning in infrastructure. Infrastructure, when we think about it, often we think roads and bridges, and that would be correct, but it's much more. It's Pennsylvania's transit systems, our passenger and our freight rail, our sewer and our water systems, our communication systems, and our energy systems. All of these are vital elements of Pennsylvania's competitiveness. All of these are important to a prosperous Pennsylvania in the future. Certainly one of the most visible aspects are our roads. More than 45,000 miles of state roads, interstates, local roads, all in need of maintenance and repair. It's imperative that our roads are in good condition to provide drivers a safe commute to and from work, but also so that we can get our raw materials in, our finished product to the marketplace. The condition of our state bridges is shocking. I'm sure the Secretary will talk more about this. But with more than 6,000 bridges in need of repair, it's time for Pennsylvania to take action and to do something. It's also, of course, while the safety is paramount, it's also important to think of the commercial and, in fact, the environmental consequences of our bad bridges. Weight restrictions that require 2 routes a day, or 2 trucks, and more fuel consumption, or long, costly detours. Similarly, our mass transit system is in great need of continued maintenance, repair, and upgrading. While capacity is something we can talk about for all of these issues, we want to first and foremost address the current maintenance needs. Our mass transit systems provide our urban workers a reliable source of transportation while helping to alleviate road congestion. And while it's appropriate to look to mass transit riders for a fee at the fare box, mass transit is a public good. The commerce of our cities depend on bringing workers of all classes to their place of employment. For years, however, we've pitted the needs of our highways and roads against the needs of our mass transit system. It's time for Pennsylvania to recognize the need for adequate transportation systems of all types for the entire Commonwealth. Recently, you're well aware, Governor Rendell has proposed a lease of the Pennsylvania Turnpike as a potential source of revenue for our road and mass transit infrastructure maintenance needs. Last year, of course, we also approved Act 44. We applaud all the attempts to work with the private sector and to provide services. The General Assembly will consider all the merits and the pitfalls of the Governor's particular proposal, and they will also consider other options, such as those brought to us by the Turnpike Commission itself, to monetize our asset. Being creative in the search for solutions is an important and valuable step forward. Now, unlike mass transit, state funding is set aside in a dedicated way for Pennsylvania's rail systems. Unfortunately, for too long, it's been too little, at $10 million. The Governor would propose this year raising that to $20 million. It's important to know that with our 69 freight railroads, we have a more extensive system covering over 5,000 miles, more extensive than any in the nation. And our railroads themselves are contributing $135 million per year to maintain that system. Now, I've focused first on transportation systems. They're better known, better understood, in large measure because they're visible. Perhaps the one aspect of infrastructure most taken for granted, because it's almost completely out of sight below ground, are our water and sewage systems. Our heavy industries, food processing, chemicals and pharmaceuticals, and steel require vast quantities of water for operation. And of course, once used, the water and other liquid waste must be treated and disposed of properly. A lack of water often limits core industries, forcing some companies to relocate factories outside of Pennsylvania. By providing factories more efficient sources of water, we also create more jobs and more goods in Pennsylvania. Handling sewage appropriately is necessary to safeguard our health and environment and to foster continued capacity for sustainable development in Pennsylvania. In a similar fashion, we also have the means to transmit, we must also have the means to transmit and distribute the energy that we produce in Pennsylvania. We have a very strong electricity generation capacity in Pennsylvania. We have ample and growing reserves of natural gas. But these sources of energy do us no good if we cannot connect them with the end users. We must build electricity transmission capability. We must build natural gas transmission capability. And we must replace aging, wasteful, and potentially dangerous distribution lines. We must also rethink the way we pay for energy infrastructure. Traditionally, energy companies have passed their infrastructure investment cost along to consumers on the per unit price of energy. Paying for a cubic foot of gas includes paying for the infrastructure to deliver that gas. But we are seeking to reduce our consumption of gas and electricity. At the same time, we need to replace aging infrastructure. It's time to decouple the purchase of energy infrastructure and the purchase of energy products, as we have decoupled the purchase of water and water infrastructure. The system that we've used in water that makes sense for energy is the Distribution System Improvement Charge, or DISC, supported by the PUC and Chairman Wendell Holland. That legislation is now under consideration in the General Assembly. Governor Rendell has stressed the need for a committed national government effort to rebuild the country's aging infrastructure, an effort like we saw in the post-war period. However, we cannot wait for the federal government. Pennsylvania needs to be the example for other states through the commitment of our local government and our state government to seek solutions to our infrastructure needs. These are costly issues. It will be easy for the General Assembly to find fault with any specific proposal. We believe that transparency and a full vetting of all ideas is appropriate and important, but doing nothing is not an option. The key objective in coming weeks and months is not finding fault or blame or points on which we can disagree. The key objective is to find solutions with which we can all live. Good infrastructure is necessary to maintain the high quality of life that Pennsylvanians deserve. Sound infrastructure is important for economic success and is essential to our competitive growth. Finding a common solution is going to be difficult, but infrastructure needs must be a top priority for our state government. The business community of Pennsylvania is ready to join our elected policymakers as partners in the search for solutions. These efforts are critical to creating a more competitive Pennsylvania, a more prosperous Pennsylvania, and a better Pennsylvania for all of us. Thank you.